Some betrayals don't begin with a lie. They begin with a smile meant for someone else. Stay with me, because what happened on that red carpet didn't just end a marriage. It changed the future of one of America's wealthiest families forever. The wedding ring struck the polished marble floor with a sound so soft that no one should have noticed it. Yet somehow, in the silence that followed, it echoed louder than the cameras. Flash, flash, flash. Hundreds of photographers surged forward as Grant Calloway, the 34-year-old millionaire CEO of Calloway Media, wrapped one confident arm around Hollywood's newest sensation, Sienna Vale. The actress leaned comfortably against him beneath the dazzling premiere lights, smiling as though the entire evening belonged to the two of them. It did. At least, that was what everyone believed. Just beyond the velvet ropes stood Madeline Brooks, 8 months pregnant. One hand rested protectively beneath the curve of her stomach, while the other clutched a cream-colored envelope from her obstetrician. The evening breeze lifted loose strands of her honey-blonde hair, but she barely noticed. Her attention never left the man she had called her husband for 6 years. The child inside her shifted, almost as if she could feel her mother's heartbeat racing. Madeline had come with only one purpose. The doctor had called less than an hour earlier. Their baby girl was showing early signs of distress. There was a real possibility of premature delivery if Madeline experienced another period of severe emotional stress. Grant needed to know immediately. She had imagined pulling him aside, speaking quietly, driving home together. Instead, she watched him laugh. Not with her. With another woman. "Ladies and gentlemen," Grant announced, his voice smooth and practiced as microphones rose toward him. "Tonight is special for more reasons than just a movie premiere." Reporters leaned closer. Camera shutters exploded like fireworks. Sienna's perfectly manicured fingers slipped between his. "I've spent too many years living for appearances," Grant continued. "It's time I started living honestly." Madeline's breathing slowed. Something inside her already knew what was coming. "I've chosen happiness." Grant turned toward Sienna before gently lifting her hand. "I'd like everyone to meet the woman I truly love." The applause began before the sentence had even finished. Some reporters cheered. Others shouted questions. Social media live streams flooded instantly with comments declaring Hollywood's newest power couple. Not one person noticed the pregnant woman standing only 20 feet away. Except one. High above the crowd, inside the glass balcony overlooking the theater entrance, Harrison Calloway stood completely motionless. The billionaire founder of the Calloway empire watched every second without saying a word. His weathered hands rested on the polished railing. His expression never changed. Below him, Grant finally saw Madeline. Their eyes met. For one impossible heartbeat, the noise around them disappeared. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply lifted the medical envelope slightly, hoping he would understand. Grant looked at the envelope, then at her stomach, then back toward the cameras waiting for another headline. His jaw tightened. Without hesitation, he slid his gold wedding band from his finger. The ring paused briefly in his palm. Then he handed it to his assistant. "Take care of that." The assistant nodded awkwardly. The ring slipped. It struck the marble. Click. No louder than a coin. Yet to Madeline, it sounded like the final nail sealing shut everything she had believed about love. Around her, applause continued. Grant never walked toward her. Never asked why she had come. Never asked about their daughter. Instead, he placed his arm around Sienna once more and smiled for another 100 cameras, while behind the brilliant flashes, Harrison Calloway quietly stepped away from the balcony. No one noticed the old billionaire leaving. But before the night was over, he would make a decision that neither his son nor the woman beside him would ever see coming. The cruelest part of betrayal isn't being replaced. It's discovering someone planned your exit long before you knew you were leaving. Morning arrived gray and cold over the Calloway estate. The headlines had already spread across every major entertainment website. Millionaire CEO debuts romance with Hollywood star. Power couple stuns red carpet. Not one article mentioned the pregnant wife standing in the background. Madeline Brooks sat silently inside her car for almost 10 minutes before gathering enough strength to walk toward the front door. She still wore the same pale blue maternity dress from the premiere. Her feet ached. Her back burned. The baby moved gently beneath her ribs, reminding her that no matter how badly her own heart hurt, another tiny heart depended on hers. She reached for the keypad. For digits. The familiar electronic tone never came. Instead, access denied. Madeline frowned. She entered the code again. Nothing. One more time. The screen flashed red. Behind her, a delivery truck rolled slowly away from the driveway. Only then did she notice the 6 cardboard boxes neatly arranged beside the front steps. Each one carried a printed label. M. Brooks. Personal items. For several seconds, she simply stared. No tears. No anger. Only disbelief. The front door opened before she could knock. Grant stepped outside wearing a charcoal suit, already dressed for another television interview. His wedding ring was gone. "So you came back," he said calmly. Madeline looked from him to the boxes. "You changed the code. I had security do it this morning. Our baby nursery is upstairs. Our lawyers will arrange whatever belongings belong to the child." The sentence landed harder than any slap. "Our child," Madeline corrected quietly. Grant sighed as though she were making an ordinary business negotiation unnecessarily emotional. "This doesn't have to become ugly." He handed her a thick, white envelope. The same expensive paper his public relations department used for corporate announcements. "What's this?" "A divorce settlement." Madeline slowly opened the folder. The words blurred for a moment before coming back into focus. "Monthly support. A confidentiality agreement. Restrictions on speaking to the media. Temporary custody arrangements." One paragraph caught her attention immediately. "Primary legal guardianship shall transfer to Grant Calloway following the child's birth, pending psychological evaluation of the mother." Her fingers froze. "Psychological evaluation?" She looked up. "What is this?" "My attorneys believe it's in everyone's best interest. I've never been diagnosed with any mental illness. You've been under emotional strain. Because my husband announced his affair on live television." Grant didn't answer. Instead, he adjusted his cufflinks. The front hallway suddenly filled with laughter. Sienna Vale appeared barefoot at the top of the staircase. She wasn't wearing one of her glamorous red carpet gowns anymore. She was wearing Madeline's ivory silk robe. The robe Madeline's mother had given her on her wedding day. "Oh," Sienna smiled sweetly. "I didn't realize you were still here." She walked downstairs as though she had lived inside the mansion for years. "You left some beautiful clothes in the closet." Grant said nothing. That silence told Madeline everything. Sienna stopped only inches away. "You should sign the papers while everyone's still feeling generous." Her smile widened. "Most abandoned wives don't receive an exit package." Madeline looked directly into her eyes. Then, without saying a single word, she bent slowly and picked up the small silver bracelet that had fallen from one of the open boxes. The tiny star-shaped charm shimmered beneath the morning sun. Her mother's bracelet. The only thing she truly cared about. She fastened it around her wrist, closed the divorce folder, lifted one box, then another. Grant watched her leave without offering to help. Neither did Sienna. As the taxi pulled away from the estate, Madeline rested both hands over her unborn daughter and whispered the first words she had spoken all morning. "We're going to be okay." She wasn't sure whether she was comforting the baby or herself. The taxi reached the end of the long driveway before stopping at the security gate. A black Bentley waited across the street with its engine running. Its tinted window lowered only an inch, just enough for Madeline to recognize the man sitting inside. Harrison Calloway. The billionaire patriarch didn't wave, didn't speak. He simply watched the taxi disappear into the morning traffic. Then he quietly told his driver 4 words that would soon change every life in his family. "Follow her." Not him. The strongest people rarely announce that they're starting over. They simply survive one more day than the people who expected them to break. The apartment was barely 700 square feet. It overlooked a crowded intersection instead of a private lake. The elevator groaned. The kitchen lights flickered. There were no marble floors. No grand staircase. No uniformed staff waiting by the entrance. For the first time in 6 years, Madeline Brooks slept somewhere that didn't carry the Calloway name. And strangely, it was the first place that felt honest. Dr. Claire Donovan unlocked the apartment door with one hand while balancing 2 paper bags of groceries in the other. "I bought decaf coffee," she said with a tired smile. "Don't argue. Your daughter already has enough reasons to keep you awake." Madeline laughed softly. It was the first genuine sound to escape her since the red carpet premiere. Claire had been her college roommate long before becoming one of Boston's most respected obstetricians. She never asked unnecessary questions. She simply stayed. Sometimes that was the greatest kindness anyone could offer. Later that evening, while rain tapped gently against the apartment windows, Claire placed an ultrasound monitor across Madeline's stomach. A steady rhythm filled the room. Thump, thump, thump. There she is, Claire whispered. Strong. For now. Madeline closed her eyes. That heartbeat mattered more than every headline Grant had ever chased. Claire carefully removed the monitor before glancing toward the unopened boxes stacked against the living room wall. I've always wanted to ask you something. Madeline smiled faintly, then asked. When Calloway Media almost collapsed 6 years ago. She paused. Who actually saved the company? Silence settled over the room. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere beyond the city skyline. Finally, Madeline stood and walked toward one of the boxes. She searched beneath folded sweaters and old photo albums before pulling out a faded leather portfolio. The corners were worn from years of use. She handed it to Claire. Inside were handwritten financial models, acquisition strategies, risk assessments, emergency restructuring plans. Every page carried one signature. Madeline Brooks. I built the recovery plan, she admitted quietly. Claire looked up. What? The board believed Grant negotiated the turnaround. He told everyone he did. I let him. Claire stared in disbelief. You gave him the credit? Madeline nodded. We had only been married for 8 months. He wanted his father to believe he deserved to lead the company. And you sacrificed your own career? I thought we were building one future together. Memory flooded back with painful clarity. Countless nights spent sleeping on office couches. Cold pizza shared beside glowing computer screens. Grant promising that one day everyone would know how brilliant she was. One day never came. Every successful acquisition carried Grant's name. Every television interview celebrated his leadership. Every award found its place inside his office. Madeline's contribution slowly disappeared until even Grant began believing the illusion himself. Claire closed the portfolio with unusual force. He stole your life. No. Madeline looked toward the rain-covered window. I handed it to him. Another silence followed. This one felt heavier. Claire suddenly reached for her tablet. I almost forgot. What? The hospital updated your electronic records this afternoon. She opened the patient portal. Her expression changed instantly. Confusion, then concern, then something dangerously close to anger. That's impossible. Madeline frowned. What is? Claire rotated the screen. Someone had submitted a formal request directing all future medical updates regarding Madeline's pregnancy to a private legal office representing Grant Calloway. Appointment schedules, ultrasound reports, delivery notifications. Everything. He doesn't have permission, Claire said. He shouldn't even know these records exist. Madeline felt the room tilt slightly. Grant wasn't just ending the marriage. He was preparing for something far larger. Claire continued reading. Another document appeared beneath the request. A preliminary petition regarding emergency custody immediately following childbirth. Filed less than 3 hours after the red carpet premiere. The papers had already been drafted before Grant publicly abandoned her. Which meant this hadn't been an emotional decision. It had been a strategy. Madeline slowly rested both hands over her daughter. For the first time since leaving the mansion, fear replaced heartbreak. Someone wasn't trying to take her husband anymore. Someone was preparing to take her child. Neither woman noticed the black Bentley parked quietly across the street. Inside, Harrison Calloway closed a leather folder containing copies of the same custody petition. His weathered eyes remained fixed on the apartment window. Then he spoke quietly to his longtime attorney. My son believes he's fighting for an heir. He paused. He's about to learn the difference between ownership and family. Real power doesn't arrive with bodyguards. Sometimes it walks into a quiet cafe carrying nothing more than the truth. 3 mornings later, the rain had finally stopped. Boston's streets glistened beneath a pale autumn sun as Madeline walked slowly toward a small neighborhood cafe only a few blocks from Claire's apartment. She almost didn't go. The message had contained only one sentence. 11 a.m. Come alone. Harrison Calloway. No explanation. No apology. No promise. Only a time. She found him sitting in the corner beside a rain-speckled window. No security team. No assistants. No expensive watch displayed beneath the cuff of his tailored jacket. Only an aging billionaire quietly stirring black coffee that had long since gone cold. Thank you for coming, Harrison said. Madeline remained standing. I almost didn't. I expected that. She lowered herself carefully into the chair across from him, one hand instinctively resting beneath her stomach. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. Outside, people hurried past without recognizing the man who controlled one of the country's largest investment empires. Finally, Harrison slid a thick leather folder across the table. I believe this belongs with you. Madeline looked at it without touching it. If that's money, I'm not interested. It isn't. She opened the folder. The first page displayed internal accounting reports from Calloway Media. The second showed confidential bank transfers. The third, movie production expenses, private jet invoices, luxury villas, jewelry purchases. Every payment traced back to company accounts. Every payment connected to Sienna Vale. Madeline continued turning pages. The numbers grew larger. Millions, then tens of millions. Grant hadn't simply fallen in love with an actress. He had financed that love using corporate money. He classified everything as marketing expenses, Harrison said quietly. The board never questioned him. Madeline looked up. Why are you showing me this? Keep reading. Near the bottom of the folder lay another document. Unlike the others, this page carried her own signature, or something that looked almost identical. Her breathing stopped. It was an authorization approving a multi-million-dollar transfer, dated only 2 weeks earlier. I never signed this. I know. She examined every line carefully. The signature had been copied with astonishing precision. Anyone glancing at it would believe it genuine. It was forged. Yes. Madeline slowly closed the folder. So Grant committed fraud. He isn't the only one. Harrison folded his hands. Sienna signed as a witness. The cafe suddenly felt much smaller, much quieter. Madeline stared out the window. I don't understand. No. Harrison's voice remained calm. You don't understand why I'm here. She met his eyes. For the first time since knowing him, she saw exhaustion instead of authority. My son believes a family business is inherited through blood. He paused. I built it believing it should survive through character. The waiter quietly refilled their coffee before disappearing again. Neither touched the cups. Harrison reached into his coat pocket and removed something unexpected. A single $1 bill. Perfectly flat. Carefully folded. He placed it on top of the folder. I've prepared an agreement. Madeline frowned. What kind of agreement? If Grant is proven to have violated the ethics clause written into our family trust. He gently tapped the dollar bill. I will transfer controlling voting rights of the trust to you. Madeline blinked. For $1? The price is symbolic. She shook her head immediately. No. Harrison wasn't surprised. I thought you'd refuse. I'm not interested in revenge. This isn't revenge. I don't want your company's money. And if accepting it protects 6,000 employees from my son's decisions? Silence. The question lingered between them. Harrison leaned forward slightly. I've watched powerful people my entire life. His voice softened. They always ask what they will gain. He looked directly at Madeline. You asked what everyone else would lose. For the first time, the old billionaire smiled. It wasn't a business smile. It was almost relief. That, he said quietly, is why I'm sitting across from you instead of my son. Madeline lowered her eyes to the forged document once more. Something caught her attention near the bottom corner. A notary stamp. An unfamiliar name. She read it twice. Then a third time. Recognition spread across her face. The notary had worked exclusively inside Grant's executive offices, which meant the forgery hadn't been created in secret. It had been manufactured inside Calloway headquarters itself. Someone inside the company wasn't merely helping Grant destroy his marriage. They were helping him build a legal case against the mother of his unborn child. Truth doesn't shout when it finally arrives. It plays back every word people prayed would never be heard again. The room became impossibly still. Madeline pressed the phone closer to her ear. The recording crackled for a moment before Grant's voice returned, calm and unmistakable. If she signs after the baby is born, we won't even need a custody trial. Another voice answered. Sienna. And if she refuses? Grant laughed softly. She won't. There was the faint clink of a wine glass. Then silence. A third voice entered the conversation. Male. Professional. One Madeline recognized immediately. It belonged to Victor Langley, Grant's longtime corporate attorney. The psychological narrative is already in motion, Victor said. By the time the child is born, public opinion will do half the work for us. Madeline's fingers tightened around the phone. Grant spoke again. What about the medical records? They're being redirected. And the financial documents? The forged authorization has already been notarized. Another pause. Then Sienna asked the question that made the room feel colder. So after the baby becomes his legal heir? She corrected herself with a smile hidden inside her voice. Our baby eventually inherits everything. Grant answered without hesitation. Exactly. The recording ended. No dramatic music. No confession screamed into the microphone. Just quiet certainty. The certainty of people who believe they could never be exposed. Claire looked up from across the room. Neither woman spoke. Neither needed to. The truth had become heavier than words. Minutes later, Harrison arrived at the apartment carrying only a slim leather briefcase. He studied Madeline's face before asking a single question. You've heard it. She nodded. Without another word, she handed him the phone. He listened from beginning to end. His expression never changed. Only after the recording stopped did he quietly remove his glasses. For the first time in decades, Harrison Calloway looked old. I taught my son to build companies, he whispered. I never taught him to steal a child's future. He reached inside the briefcase. Instead of contracts, he removed a sealed envelope. Across the front were 6 handwritten words. For delivery only if necessary. Madeline frowned. What is it? My final amendment to the Calloway family trust. Claire looked surprised. You've already changed your will? No. Harrison gently placed the envelope on the table. I rewrote my legacy. He looked directly at Madeline. If anything happens before tomorrow's board meeting. His voice remained steady. That envelope transfers every voting share I control into an independent trust. She immediately shook her head. I can't accept that. You aren't accepting wealth. He interrupted softly. You're protecting people who earn their futures honestly. Before Madeline could answer, Harrison's private phone vibrated. One message. His chief investigator. Emergency. Grant knows someone leaked the recording. A second message arrived almost instantly. Victor Langley has begun deleting internal company servers. Harrison stood immediately. They're destroying evidence. Claire looked toward Madeline. You can't go anywhere. Madeline placed a protective hand over her stomach. She wasn't planning to. Harrison headed toward the apartment door before stopping. Without turning around, he spoke quietly. Lock every window. The sentence felt strangely specific. He looked back only once. My investigator believes the leak didn't come from inside the company. Madeline frowned. Then where? Harrison's answer was almost a whisper. From someone inside Grant's own house. The apartment door closed. Night settled across the city. Outside, an unfamiliar black SUV parked beneath a broken street lamp. Its engine remained running. Inside sat 2 men. Neither spoke. One watched the apartment entrance through binoculars. The other raised a camera fitted with a powerful telephoto lens. Several photographs clicked into existence. Madeline, Claire, the apartment number, the front entrance. Then one final picture. Harrison's Bentley leaving the building. The passenger lowered his camera. They're all connected. The driver picked up his phone. Tell Mr. Calloway we've confirmed the meeting. There was a brief pause before another order came through the speaker. The driver's expression changed. You want us to recover the recording? The voice on the phone answered coldly. No. Another pause. Recover the woman. Upstairs, completely unaware of the surveillance below, Madeline quietly folded the tiny pink blanket she had bought for her unborn daughter. She had finally uncovered the truth. She didn't yet realize the people who feared that truth had already started moving toward her. Some evidence wins a lawsuit. Other evidence changes the course of an entire family. The rarest kind does both. The black SUV remained outside until dawn. When the first rays of sunlight touched the apartment windows, it quietly disappeared into the morning traffic. Inside, Madeline hadn't slept. The tiny pink blanket still rested across her lap. Grant's recorded voice echoed through her mind over and over. If she signs after the baby is born. Every sentence had stripped away another illusion. She no longer wondered whether her marriage had failed. She understood it had been planned. At exactly 8 o'clock, Harrison's attorney arrived carrying 2 sealed cases and a portable hard drive. His name was Daniel Mercer. For nearly 30 years, he had defended the Calloway empire. Today, he looked less like a lawyer than a man preparing for war. We don't have much time, Daniel said. He connected the drive to Claire's laptop. Folders immediately filled the screen. Security footage, financial records, corporate emails, metadata reports. The anonymous recording wasn't our only leak. Madeline looked up. What do you mean? Daniel opened another folder. This came from an encrypted backup server Victor Langley forgot existed. Hundreds of internal emails appeared. Most were ordinary. Budgets, meetings, contracts. Then one subject line froze everyone in the room. Operation New Beginning. Claire frowned. That sounds like a charity project. Daniel clicked the file. It wasn't. The first email had been sent almost 4 months earlier. From Grant to Victor, copying Sienna. The opening sentence contained only 8 words. Prepare transition before pregnancy becomes public knowledge. Madeline felt her breathing slow. Every message afterward formed pieces of the same design. Schedule media appearances. Redirect financial assets. Forge signatures. Control medical information. Question maternal stability. Accelerate custody filing. Nothing had been spontaneous. Nothing had been emotional. The affair. The interviews. The divorce. Every move had been scheduled like a corporate acquisition. Daniel continued scrolling. There's something else. Near the bottom sat a confidential calendar invitation. Board meeting. Mandatory attendance. Tomorrow. Agenda item 3. Confirmation of new Calloway family representative. Attached beneath it. A photograph. Grant. Sienna. A little boy approximately 4 years old. Madeline stared at the image. I've never seen this child. Daniel nodded slowly. Neither had Harrison. Claire whispered, whose son is he? Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened the final attachment. A private investigator's report. DNA probability. 99.9%. Grant Calloway confirmed as biological father. The report had been completed almost 3 years earlier. Long before Madeline became pregnant. Grant hadn't simply betrayed his wife. He had hidden another child from his own father. The apartment fell completely silent. Daniel finally spoke. Harrison learned about the boy only yesterday. Madeline lowered her eyes. Suddenly, everything made sense. Grant wasn't fighting for custody because he feared losing his first child. He was fighting because Hope would become the legitimate heir recognized by the family trust. Without custody, his carefully constructed future could collapse. Daniel closed the laptop. The board meeting was supposed to introduce Sienna as the new public face of the Calloway family. And now? Claire asked. Daniel looked toward the window. Now? His phone vibrated. He read the message once, then smiled for the first time all morning. Harrison has changed the agenda. Madeline looked up. To what? Daniel turned the screen toward her. The updated schedule contained only one additional line. Special presentation, evidence regarding executive misconduct. Before anyone could speak again, Claire suddenly grabbed the edge of the kitchen counter. Her medical instincts activated instantly. She looked directly at Madeline. When did the contractions start? Madeline blinked. What contractions? Another sharp pain crossed her abdomen. She instinctively wrapped both arms around her stomach. I thought it was stress. Claire checked her watch. How far apart? Madeline didn't answer. She couldn't. A second wave struck harder than the first. Daniel's expression changed immediately. The hospital. Claire was already reaching for her emergency bag. No. She listened carefully, counted, waited, then looked back at both of them with growing concern. This isn't false labor. Outside, far across the street, another camera shutter clicked. Someone lowered a telephoto lens and quietly spoke into a hidden microphone. Target is leaving. A calm voice answered through the earpiece. Good. A brief pause followed. Intercept them before they reach the hospital. A child can arrive in the middle of chaos. Justice often chooses the exact same moment. Claire reacted before anyone else. Daniel, get the car. She slipped an arm around Madeline's shoulders as another contraction stole her breath. Slow, Maddie. Don't fight it. Outside, the morning air felt colder than before. Daniel's black sedan rolled toward the curb. The street appeared empty. Too empty. The moment Madeline reached the passenger door, a dark SUV accelerated from the opposite side of the intersection. Its tires screamed across the pavement. Daniel's instincts took over. Get back. The SUV stopped only a few feet away. 2 men stepped out. Neither wore masks. Neither carried visible weapons. One raised both hands calmly. Mrs. Brooks. His voice was polite. Mr. Calloway sent us. Madeline's face hardened. I have nothing to say to him. The second man smiled without warmth. You misunderstand. He opened the rear door of the SUV. "We're here to take you somewhere safe." Claire moved directly in front of Madeline. "She's in active labor." The man barely looked at her. "Our instructions haven't changed." Before another word could be spoken, a deep engine echoed from the end of the street. A silver Bentley appeared around the corner. Then another. Then two black security vehicles behind them. The lead Bentley stopped sideways across the road, blocking the SUV completely. Harrison stepped out before the driver could open his door. He looked at the two men only once. "I suggest you leave." Neither moved. One quietly reached toward his jacket. Within seconds, Harrison's security team surrounded the sidewalk. No shouting. No punches. Only silence. The first man slowly removed his hand. Not a weapon. A phone. He looked at Harrison. "You've chosen the wrong side." Harrison answered without raising his voice. "No." He glanced toward Madeline. "I finally chose the right one." The two men exchanged a look. Then, without another word, climbed back into the SUV and disappeared into traffic. Claire exhaled for the first time in nearly a minute. "We're wasting time." She helped Madeline into the Bentley. Another contraction hit before the door even closed. Harrison took the front passenger seat. "The nearest hospital?" Claire shook her head. "No." Everyone looked at her. "If Grant's people can find this address, they can find any private hospital in the city." She turned toward the driver. "St. Catherine Medical Center." Daniel frowned. "The public hospital?" Claire nodded. "It's the only place where nobody can quietly buy an entire maternity floor." The Bentley accelerated. Traffic lights blurred past the windows. Inside the car, Madeline fought through each contraction without a single scream. Her breathing remained controlled. Measured. Harrison watched her through the rearview mirror. "You remind me of your mother." Madeline looked up in surprise. "You barely knew her." "I knew enough." His eyes never left the road ahead. "She once told me something I'll never forget." Another contraction interrupted the silence. Claire squeezed Madeline's hand. Harrison continued anyway. "Character isn't measured by how loudly people defend themselves." He paused. "It's measured by how quietly they protect those who cannot." Madeline lowered her hand onto her stomach. She whispered to the baby, "We're almost there." At the same moment, across town, Grant walked confidently into Calloway Media headquarters. Employees avoided eye contact. Board members had already begun arriving. Victor Langley hurried toward him. "We have a problem." Grant frowned. "What now?" Harrison changed today's agenda. Grant shrugged. "Let him." Victor leaned closer. "It's not the agenda. It's the guest list." Grant stopped walking. "What guest list?" Victor swallowed. "Every board member." He hesitated. "The auditors." Another pause. "The Securities Commission." And Grant's expression slowly changed. "The district attorney." For the first time since abandoning his pregnant wife on the red carpet, confidence disappeared from his face. Meanwhile, the Bentley turned sharply beneath the emergency entrance of St. Catherine Medical Center. Doctors rushed forward with a wheelchair. Claire was already giving rapid medical instructions. 36 weeks. High stress. Contractions 3 minutes apart. As the nurses wheeled Madeline through the sliding glass doors, Harrison remained standing outside. Rain began falling again. His phone vibrated. One message. Only 5 words. "The board meeting starts now." Harrison looked once toward the maternity ward, then quietly handed Daniel the sealed envelope containing his rewritten family trust. "If I'm not back in time." Daniel accepted it without speaking. Harrison straightened his jacket and walked back toward the Bentley. One life was about to enter the world. Another was about to watch everything he had built collapse in front of it. Some men spend their lives chasing an empire. Then one ordinary morning, they discover the only thing standing between them and ruin is the woman they tried to erase. The boardroom overlooked the entire city. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected polished marble, tailored suits, and generations of Calloway power. Grant entered with practiced confidence. He still believed this meeting belonged to him. Every director was already seated. So were independent auditors, government investigators, corporate counsel. No one spoke. At precisely 9 o'clock, the doors opened again. Harrison walked inside. Rain still clung to the shoulders of his coat. He didn't greet his son. He simply took his seat at the head of the table. "The meeting is now in session." Grant leaned back comfortably. "I'm assuming this is about the media controversy." Harrison looked at him for several silent seconds. "No." He pressed a small remote. The massive screen behind him illuminated. One audio file appeared. Recording_0428_final. MP3. Grant's confidence disappeared. The room filled with his own voice. If she signs after the baby is born, we won't even need a custody trial. No one interrupted. The recording continued. Victor Langley's legal strategy. Sienna's questions. Grant's calm agreement. Every sentence echoed through the silent boardroom. When it ended, no one looked at Harrison. Every eye remained fixed on Grant. He stood abruptly. The recording was manipulated. Harrison pressed the remote again. A forensic authentication report appeared. Independent laboratory. Digital timestamp verification. No edits. No alterations. Grant turned toward Victor. Victor lowered his eyes. For the first time in 20 years, Grant stood completely alone. The auditors began distributing folders. Unauthorized transfers. Forged signatures. Hidden shell companies. Misappropriated corporate funds. Then Harrison placed one final photograph on the table. Grant. Sienna. Their secret son. 3 years old. Grant stared at it without breathing. You knew? I know enough. Harrison's voice remained perfectly calm. You hid a grandson from me. Silence settled like dust. Finally, Harrison spoke the sentence everyone would remember. You didn't lose this company because you loved another woman. He paused. You lost it because you stopped recognizing the difference between people and possessions. He removed a single folded document. The amended trust. Signed. Witnessed. Effective immediately. As controlling trustee, I hereby suspend Grant Calloway from every executive responsibility within Calloway Media. Gasps filled the room. The board will vote. Hands slowly rose. One after another. Unanimous. Grant's removal passed without a single objection. His chair suddenly looked far too large for him. At that exact moment, nearly 5 miles away, a newborn's first cry echoed through St. Catherine Medical Center. Claire smiled behind her surgical mask. It's a girl. Madeline closed her eyes. Every fear she had carried for months dissolved into that single sound. The nurse gently placed the tiny infant against her chest. The baby's fingers instinctively wrapped around one of her mother's. So small, Madeline whispered through tears. So strong. Claire looked at the birth certificate form. Have you chosen her name? Madeline smiled. Hope. Just hope. Nothing more needed to be said. Minutes later, Harrison quietly entered the hospital room. He had left the board meeting before reporters surrounded the building. He approached the bed slowly. Without asking permission, the nurse placed the sleeping baby into his arms. The billionaire who had negotiated billion-dollar acquisitions now stood completely still, afraid to disturb a child weighing barely 6 pounds. Hope opened her tiny eyes. For one brief second, she looked directly at him. Harrison smiled. It was the first genuine smile anyone had seen from him in years. I think, he whispered softly, your grandmother would have loved you. He turned toward Madeline. The board asked who should lead the company until a permanent successor is chosen. Madeline looked surprised. I told them leadership could wait. He glanced down at Hope. Today, his voice almost disappeared. Our family has something far more important to welcome. Outside the hospital, cameras continued chasing scandal. Inside, no one noticed them. Because real victories rarely arrive beneath flashing lights. Sometimes they arrive wrapped in a pink blanket, sleeping peacefully in the arms of the man who finally understood that an empire can be rebuilt. But a woman's dignity, once defended, becomes the legacy that outlives every fortune.